Hi, welcome. I'm Anna. I'm a clinical psychology doctoral candidate. This channel is about the real-life applications to psychology. So here we go. Today we're talking about self-help and this debate between personal responsibility and fighting systemic oppression. Self-help is an industry that makes over $10 billion per year. Despite its popularity, there's a lot of discourse online about self-help putting too much emphasis on the individual's personal responsibility while ignoring systemic barriers to self-improvement. And there are sort of two camps in this debate. One camp is people who believe in the importance of personal responsibility, and this often includes self-help rhetoric, conservative viewpoints, and individualistic cultures. And the second camp is people who believe we need to focus primarily on fixing the system rather than ourselves, and this often includes liberal viewpoints, social justice warrior culture, and more collectivistic cultures. In this video, I'm going to argue that actually both are correct and we're just getting polarized for no reason in a way that completely erases any nuance. Before we get started, I don't want this video to be all enlightened centrist. I think there's something to be said about taking a side, especially on matters of injustice. I also think that where human psychology is concerned, it's actually extremely important to consider all the different viewpoints before concluding that one singular thing is going to solve the problem. Getting too invested in one side can end up being reductionistic and short-sighted. For example, there was this whole debate earlier in the century about nature versus nurture. Psychologists arguing, are mental disorders caused by genetics and just the way that we are born, or are they caused by the way we're raised and the traumas we experience in our lives once we're actually born? And it was kind of strange to see these two camps battling it out when really research confirmed that both are very much true. Another example is this idea of validating versus challenging in therapy. Some people say that therapy should be all validation. Some people say that therapy should be primarily just challenging things that don't make sense, things that aren't logical. I think both are important because sometimes the client is going to be invalid in their way of thinking. They are going to have certain thoughts and cognitions that don't serve them. And when that's the case, challenging can help the client versus when they're experiencing an injustice or they just want to talk about an experience, validation can be very important as well. So let's talk about what the personal responsibility proponents say. They say that you need to take responsibility for your life and your actions. You need to be responsible for improving yourself. You need to be self-reliant. You can't blame other people for your failures. The advantages of this viewpoint is that it gives people a sense of control, empowerment, hope for the future, allows society to improve by fostering individuals who are bettering themselves in the way that they treat others. The disadvantages, well, it kind of ignores social inequities that make it harder for some people to succeed or self-improve, and it doesn't directly work on improving the collective or acknowledge that individuals don't just exist in a vacuum. We're all interconnected and we're all relationally linked in some way. On the other hand, there are the people who argue for changing the system, and their claim is that we are all interconnected and inequities exist, therefore we cannot put the burden of self-improvement on individuals, but rather have to uplift the collective. And as I say this, I think it's interesting that usually the people who hold this belief, maybe some of them might criticize individualistic culture, but overwhelmingly the subculture I'm talking about are living in a hyper-individualistic culture. And it's sort of espousing the ideals of more collectivistic nations while still kind of adhering to individualism. But either way, the advantages of this viewpoint is it arguably improves the lives of everyone, especially those who have fewer resources. It fosters altruism and empathy, which are necessary for the collective to work, and helps individuals. Disadvantages? It can breed kind of a whiny attitude where someone else is always to blame and you don't feel motivated to take individual steps to improve your situation. There's always some ethereal force to blame when something goes wrong in your life. So my personal belief, I would argue that both sides are necessary in order for us to improve both individually and collectively. I'm a person who does advocate for marginalized groups in a number of different ways that I won't list because this isn't an exercise in virtue signaling. But if you've been on my channel for a while, you know the sorts of things I'm talking about. And I do agree that sometimes putting all the onus on the individual can be burdensome and ignore the fact that there are serious systemic factors at play that do make it very difficult for some people to self-improve. But on the other hand, I do see this getting taken to an extreme sometimes, where people just don't want to put any effort into self-improvement because it's easier to just blame other people for your own shortcomings. I'm going to give an example of a TikTok, and no offense to the woman that made the TikTok. I understand the point she was trying to make, and I hope she does find the support that she needs. But I do think it kind of exemplifies this notion of defeatism.
Yeah, have you tried going for a walk? Yeah, getting a little sun always helps me. Exercising really helps. Yeah, get that body moving. It's obvious that you don't do that. I think you need to try doing a face mask. I have like 6 in my fridge right now. I'll go get one. Oh my god, I have this playlist. It's called Good Vibes Only. Hold on. Have you tried just like being different? You look like you need a morning routine. Yeah, literally changed my life. Literally changed my life. I like to ask myself, WWTGD, what would that girl do? But have you ever used a gratitude journal?
So the TikTok is kind of making fun of when people who don't have depression or anxiety try to give you advice. And she made fun of people suggesting exercise, which has been proven to boost endorphin levels, which is very important for increasing mood, getting sunlight. Vitamin D deficiencies are highly correlated with depression. When I have a client who comes in during the winter and is depressed, that is the first thing I ask them is, are they taking vitamin D? Have they been tested if they have a deficiency recently? Relaxation techniques such as face mask or listening to music. You're essentially using this sensory awareness task that can really ground you if you're feeling anxious. Keeping a routine. Again, this is really important for depression. This is something that people struggle with. Of course, that's the problem, that's the struggle, but that is also the solution in a sense. And gratitude journaling, which is literally the whole point behind positive psychology, which has been shown to help with depression. So look, I get the point she was trying to make. Obviously, there's a certain element of toxic positivity in someone saying, just do these things and everything's gonna be fine. I think it's worth noting though that these are all things that are scientifically shown to help with depression and anxiety, and they're usually incorporated within therapeutic treatment as interventions. And also usually the person suggesting these things just doesn't know any better. They've heard this could be helpful and they're just trying to help. And in truth, like I said, those interventions are found to be helpful. I think the younger generations are falling into this trap of defeatism, where it's this mindset that, well, this isn't my fault, therefore I'm not even going to try to improve. Or I tried this one time and it didn't completely cure my issues, so why would I try again? Self-improvement is kind of like going to the gym. It requires consistency and hard work. If you don't go to the gym regularly and challenge yourself to a certain degree to do more and more progressive overload, then you're not going to see any gains. And similarly, if you don't do almost everything you need to be doing to improve the situation that you're trying to fix, and you're not keeping up with it consistently and you just give up and not even try, I think you're missing a real opportunity to improve your situation. Is it going to completely solve your problem? No, sometimes we're just dealt a shitty hand, whether it's through a genetic predisposition to depression or being born to a family with few resources or being born to abusive parents. Obviously, some systemic advocacy is in order to fully recover from that and help those people. But if you don't even try on your individual end to do what you can, fixing the system certainly won't help you. Another thing I think is worth mentioning is that the collective is made of individuals. So if you improve yourself as an individual, that could in some circumstances also improve the collective and the system, just as improving the collective can improve individuals' lives. If you're committed to improving society, for example, deconstructing your own personal biases and introspecting will be integral to that. In order to improve the system, you have to also look inward. So I do think this debate is just turning into another nature versus nurture pointless discussion where the answer is clearly both. I'm also just a little bit concerned with the way that young people are not only dismissing the importance of individual responsibility, but also going out of their way to completely demonize self-help. I watched this video a few weeks ago that was on a man who had consumed a bunch of self-help books, and he was mad because at the end of it, he hadn't really made any tangible progress. It only felt like he was going to while he was reading the books. It would be kind of like this high he was getting, and then he would just buy another book and another high, but he wasn't actually changing his life circumstances. With all due respect, there is nothing in life that has an easy fix. Reading about something is not usually enough to change your life. You have to actually implement it. And unfortunately, although that's not fair, you are the only person that can ultimately do so. So I just don't think it's helpful to demonize an entire genre which seems to be trying to help people gain the tools and insights that they need in order to improve themselves. If you don't find it helpful, that's perfectly valid, but please let's not pretend like just because it didn't work for you personally, we need to throw out the whole genre. On the other hand, I do disagree with this conservative rhetoric that you can't criticize society if your house isn't perfectly in order. First of all, even the people that say this do not have their house in order, and they often complain about the downfall of society, so it's pretty hypocritical to say that. The truth is, there are rarely people who actually have their life completely in order, if any, really. Secondly, this type of rhetoric unfairly punishes those who have been dealt a bad hand. If you live in poverty due to intergenerational issues and you don't have your life together, this argument posits that you don't even have a right to speak on the system that could be ameliorated to better equip you for success. And if only the people at the top can comment on what we can do with society, and privilege is partly what helps them get there, it silences underprivileged populations. And third, you can absolutely do both. You can work on getting your shit together while also working on building a better society. In fact, I would argue that most people who are improving the world are also working very hard to improve themselves as people. You know, I don't know what it is about humans that makes us just so incredibly black and white in our thinking. We create binaries where actually two things can coexist and are not actually opposites. It's not a contradiction to want to fix yourself and to also fix the world that you inhabit at the same time. Focusing on just one of these can really bring out the disadvantages of that approach, whereas incorporating both allows you to even out the disadvantages. In conclusion, both personal responsibility and improving society can coexist. Both have advantages and disadvantages that can complement each other if done at the same time. There are some serious pitfalls to this tendency to just complain and absolve yourself of any responsibility over your life, just like there are serious pitfalls to trying to silence people who are making a change in the world simply because their home isn't in perfect order. Let's not turn this into another pointless nature versus nurture debate. Let's move past such all or nothing thinking, please and thank you. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you did find it helpful, make sure to hit the like button and also subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you very soon.